Global conspiracy against Biafra. Misinformation. False narrative against IPOB's peaceful self-determination quest.
It is already far established that there has been a global conspiracy against Biafra's quest for self-determination. Today, some Western media platforms, namely Reuters and Jerusalem Post, published a false, bogus report concerning the Southeast, IPOB, Biafra, and the sit-at-home orders, observations, and its impacts.
The alleged investigative report in question was conducted by a shadowy, private intelligence consultancy firm, SBM Intelligence, which in all candor has deep ties with the Nigerian government, military, and most definitely, its state secret services, DSS.
It is no coincidence that this report was made public just 4 days to the highly anticipated Biafra Heroes Day, May 30, 2025, a day which has been designated in honor of victims of the genocidal Biafra War of 1967 and 1970. Amidst verbal counteraction remarks between the IPOB movement and the chief of the National Intelligence Agency, NIA, Nuhu Ribadu, over the status of forthcoming Biafra Commemoration Day and how the people of the Biafra region reckons with it.
There is no doubt that order for a voluntary sit-at-home observed was issued by the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB movement, and as has been evidently proven in the past, unenforced, before the era when Trojan horse operations to discredit the legitimate quest for Biafra self-determination, its suppressed image and that of the IPOB movement. This era was after the kidnap and extraordinary rendition of the IPOB leader by the Nigerian government.
The May 30th Biafra anniversary, as initiated by the IPOB movement since 2014, was always peaceful, as citizens would either hold non-violent processions and memorial events on such day. However, security forces would move in for mass crackdowns and killings. For instance, in 2016, the Nigerian military and police carried out series of brutal massacre of the indigenous people of Biafra protesters across the east, an extrajudicial execution spree led by the Nigerian army, in which over 150 peaceful pro-Biafra protesters, carrying only placards and flags to raise awareness of the ongoing marginalization of their rights and freedoms, were massacred.
Additionally, more than 28 people were killed in an attack on Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's ancestral home, where he hosted numerous visitors and supporters. Family members perished in this extrajudicial attack.
In fact, the sit-at-home order was the latest improvised strategy by the IPOB movement to minimize crackdowns casualties during such days and events. Yet, SBM Intelligence produced no reports detailing this daylight massacre of innocent civilians in the East. Despite being founded in 2013, a year after IPOB's establishment, SBM Intelligence appeared to lack the intelligence to expose the unlawful massacre of indigenous peoples across the East by federal security agencies for committing no crime known to law. In this report, as acknowledged by Reuters and the Jerusalem Post, confirmed that the IPOB leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, had already cancelled the sit-at-home order, initially drawn up as a protest against his continued unlawful detention and rendition. The report acknowledged that IPOB lifted the sit-at-home order in 2021 shortly after its commencement. Why, then, does the media falsely claim that the alleged 600 deaths since 2021 are a result of IPOB sit-at-home orders?
The gross contradiction in the reports of SBM Intelligence and collaborative media like Reuters, the Jerusalem Post, and probable other Western media platforms are evidently dubious and reeks of journalistic unprofessionalism. It is like turning off the journalism purview and instincts of cross-referencing every piece and fact pertaining a story. Or could it be that these media platforms failed to thoroughly study the SBM report and went on to publish them with its brazen contradictive flaws?
The SBM report failed to acknowledge that IPOB has consistently stated it has never enforced sit-at-home orders and that compliance has always been voluntary. However, it aimed at linking the Eastern Security Network, ESN, the vigilante wing set up by IPOB to solely confront the Fulani killer herdsmen in the eastern region, of alleged sit-at-home enforcements. Meanwhile, The SBM report acknowledged that the ESN, as publicly stated by IPOB, was established solely to halt terrorist incursions in the East and protect lives and property in the region.
IPOB and the ESN are innocent of these allegations propagated by Nigeria's kakistocratic government, whose legacy is marked by violations of fundamental human rights, extrajudicial killings of indigenous peoples, and conspiracy of ethnic cleansing carried out by Islamic terror groups from the Sahel. And these acts are encouraged by complacency and dubious positions of the West and its media platforms. IPOB has consistently distanced itself from the sit-at-home enforcement's enforcers and asserted that it is the Nigerian government sponsoring the violent enforcements to blackmail the IPOB movement and the ESN. Suffice to say that none of the Western mainstream media houses who are now taking swipe at the IPOB movement, right from the Nigerian government's playbook, cared to come down to the southeast to conduct an on-site independent investigation to corroborate or debunk the claims of the IPOB movement, but are buying and spreading a well-packaged government propaganda against the victimized and oppressed.
IPOB is a peaceful self-determination-seeking organization grounded in the principles of human dignity and the rights of indigenous peoples to choose their preferred religious, cultural, political, and economic governance. And, most importantly, it has no faction whatsoever.
And obviously, this report by SBM Intelligence is nothing but desperate attempts by the Nigerian NIA director and his ilks to discredit and defame the forthcoming Biafra heroes' commemoration and anniversary, because the violent sit-at-home enforcements in the southeast has so far died down since last year, when its chief architect in Finland was apprehended by Finnish authorities for his terrorism against southeast residents. Sadly, the only people buying and even marketing these state-sponsored preposterous narratives are those readily parade themselves as reputable, credible, and the global go-to source for information. However, the truth shall prevail and be made known regardless of how deep the conspiracy to suppress it runs. Family Writers Press International.